Ready. Yep.
All right, it is 5:30 and I will call the meeting to order. Cassidy, can you please take roll call?
William Beck, Justin Cully, Maddie Knudsen. Here. Colleen Lautenbach, Allison Pinn. Here. Shelby Poole, Ashley Potasic.
Here.
Carly Sherrill.
Here.
Joel Valentine.
Here.
Allison, mission and vision?
Sure. The mission of WLA is to utilize leadership-based programs, strategies grounded in solid research, and the demonstrated success of core knowledge curriculum as a basis for a rigorous overall educational program. The vision of WLA is to be a school where students become exceptional leaders and are prepared to navigate and shape their future.
Thank you. All right, I would like to make a motion to approve the March board meeting agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Any conflicts of interest tonight? Hearing none. I don't see anybody for public comment. I do not have any board reports today. Jonas, we'll jump to you for superintendent report, please.
Yeah, I guess you got a chance to look at it. Is there anything within the report specifically you want me to dig into or share more about? See what you're most interested in going deeper on.
What's the Rotary doing? The day after most of the kids are gone? On the
The day
4th?
after, yeah. Well, so they meet monthly,
Mhm.
and so we actually met today, and sometimes even twice a month. And different times they'll have it at different places. If there's members of the Rotaries that have businesses or organizations that they want the other Rotary people to see it. So it's really having your regular monthly meeting, but then as part of it, being able to tell them about our school, give a tour so they're familiar. If there's something that comes up in the future that might make sense to partner with the Rotary or have them support, they're more familiar with us. And so when I joined last year, I said, if you ever want to have one at our school, we'd love to host you. And they finally kind of got to me. So this morning's meeting, there's 12, 13 people there. We were at Open Cupboard.
Oh, the food shelf?
Yeah, in the Oakdale one. It's
Yeah.
very, very powerful. It's amazing. They have thousands of pounds of food going in and out each day.
I have neighbors that
Every
volunteer
day.
there.
I've heard a lot about that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. They do 15 and older can volunteer unless they're with a parent, but I think there could be some opportunities for some students, like if the class, we would need to explore more.
Love that.
So, yeah, so that was really good. I think the other thing that was interesting for me, as you know, I went to the Classical Education Symposium. And so the reason I wanted to go to that, it was kind of felt at the time when I was planning to take vacation this year anyways, but the reason I wanted to go is because a number of times since over the last 2 years, I've had prospective families that were here for enrollment night or month showcase or tours, or they say, so are you a classical education school? And my response has been, well, we overlap and share some principles with them, but no, we're not. But I didn't necessarily, I fully understand who we are, but I didn't necessarily fully understand classical education and how to frame that for families and understand. And the reason I know that there's a lot of overlap is because there's a lot of classical education schools. In fact, in Minnesota, I think what I've looked at was most of them, to some degree or another, use the core knowledge curriculum, or at least the core knowledge language arts. So I knew there was some, at least what things were rooted in, similarities. What I found was is probably even more overlap at the elementary level than the middle or high school. So the core knowledge, the things that we're learning about, it was maybe for different reasons in some cases, some of the philosophy behind why we do core knowledge and why they do, but it overlaps. E.D. Hirsch would talk about families or kids being able to make connections by hearing more of the things that you hear more commonly in the United States, in our Western tradition, and it helps them become better readers and, and make connections. And so we're gonna do more reading and things that you hear more commonly here than reading about things in Eastern cultures. Not that there's anything wrong with Eastern cultures, or that you aren't things to learn, but in terms of making those connections. And that's why you see a little bit more of, you go look at the art room or work around our school, and it's pretty rooted in Western tradition. It's not as maybe diverse, but that's the reason is more connections, you become better readers, better understanders, you can do things, and you get those other pieces later on. Classical education is really, it's more even rooted in kind of celebrating Western culture. Well, that's not really the reason we're doing it. We're doing it because in terms of what E.D. Hirsch would say in core knowledge, the things that are common in classical education that you typically will see that aren't true here, they have the trivium, which is, they call it the school of grammar, the school of logic, and the school of rhetoric, elementary, middle, and high school. The grammar part's kind of the same because it's really about getting all this knowledge. The school of logic, then there's a focus on understanding truth, like in reaching conclusions about things what the truth is, which isn't so much us. And then the rhetoric is really an emphasis on being able to persuade others of the truth in an oversimplified way. So a lot of emphasis on writing and presenting and debating and some of those things that we will probably do a fair amount of those things too, because that's going to be important to prepare our students to be ready for college, and a big piece of being ready for PSEO. So trivium's a piece. Classical schools will typically require Latin. And will typically kind of have their core virtues and things that they base things on be things that are a lot of times words that are based in, Greek or Rome in tradition, as part of kind of the thing. But beyond that, there can be quite a bit of variation of what people mean. Those were kind of things that were like, these are the things that are common across everybody. And so it was good to learn and be able to at least differentiate, explain where we are and where we aren't overlapping with classical education, because it is the most rapidly growing piece in education over the last 10 years. And I read some numbers about what they expect the total amount of students and total about how big the industry around classical education to be in the next 10 years. And there's certainly controversy around it. And I think as much as we try and avoid controversy and be in the middle and apolitical on things, I think we're well positioned right where we're at to be who we are. And so it was never about who are we going to become a classical education school. For me, it was more about really getting my arms around the leader, being able to explain all that to teachers, parents, families, or where we sit.
And I suppose if a parent is asking, well, do you do classical education, you could ask them, well, what specifically are you looking for for a classical education?
Exactly.
And if you could gather that they're looking for this certain thing that we also offer, then you can gear them towards that
100%.
direction. So to understand is important.
Yes. So I think it helped me be a better leader in this role, having been there. I think it was very worth my time from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Don't need to go back again. There's other trainings that would be much more valuable for you in the future. I'm a history guy and a U.S. history guy, and so there's a whole bunch of stuff on U.S. history and stuff like that I loved in these different sessions, but they aren't really that relevant to my job that I can go back in that sense. So that's what I learned there.
You want to hit on any of the facilities expansion stuff?
Oh, yeah, good. Good, yeah. So we're off and running. Today was the last day for the spine clinic downstairs. They'll start moving tomorrow, and they're expecting to be out by Sunday.
Are they taking any fixtures, or do they have to leave those here, or?
Most of
what
the
is
stuff that
acquired?
they're taking is part of it. Anything that's attached typically you take, but they made it like They purchased and put in the rubber floor that's gonna be, that's in the weight room area. It's not very expensive anyway, and they wanna take that, so they can. But for the most part, we need to knock all the walls and everything down. And so we will begin light demo on April 2nd. I think the soup will be setting up in here on the 1st. Heavy demo the following week. I expect sometime later in April to begin groundbreaking on the addition. We'll have a little groundbreaking ceremony, I guess. Nothing big, because it's, but we're gonna do something with a picture or two, send the paper and stuff like that, or put on the website. And yeah, things continue to be on pace to complete the renovation for the existing space by the start of school. To get the parking lot paved across the street, that's gonna be early in the project, because they're going to use that to stage a lot of the construction vehicles, and the city won't let them stage it on the grass.
Yeah, they'll get
So,
stuck.
so they have to do, so that will actually be an early part of the project. They will begin work on the playground right now, it's scheduled for later in July, but it doesn't sound like there'll be a problem having that done. And, yeah, but we're still at the place where, you know, our plan going into this was to have the addition done to start next school year, to have all of it done. And that addition's not gonna be done until December is the timeline now. And so that will make things really tight for 4 months in the fall. For September, October, November, over there. And they'll even be a little bit tight here, even with what we're getting done. We'll still be a little bit tight here with, go from having the 4 classes we have here right now to having 9 in the fall. And then 14, once they can move over in January. 14 sections here and 18 classrooms at that point. But in the fall, when we have 9 sections here, we will only have 10 classrooms. So, and that, you know, the specialists and different things, will be a little tight to start. So, but everything is going very well in terms of enrollment. We're significantly ahead of last year's pace. I'll talk a little bit about, I'll save that for Cassie's presentation and talk about a few things, or add a few things to what she says when we get to that, so won't spoil that. Good?
Any drive line adjustments needed to be made for this spring? We're gonna be okay because where they'll be in the
Yeah,
project?
we'll be okay. And the thing that's gonna be okay, is, what helps is that even though we're losing some parking spots, when they start the groundbreaking on the addition, there's typically about 25 to 30 cars at max, but up to 30 cars here for the spine clinic at one time that are no longer here.
Right.
So that, we lose 30 spots and we get, you know, those 30
And
back.
no
from the
snow
back.
piles.
Yes.
Right, the snow piles will go away.
Yes, they'll be
So-
gone before,
Yeah.
so, yeah. I
Are
think
we-
we're okay.
Are we losing staff parking?
Are we, well, yeah, between the addition and the playground, we'll lose some parking, but we're getting parking with these spots here that we couldn't park in at the spine clinic, and then they'll be adding about 50 spots across the street.
But that won't happen until.
It will be done, but it won't really be usable, because it'll be stuck, I don't know what extent we'll be able to use spaces there. That's one of the things that we're gonna have to figure out,
Zach
because
has
of.
been parking kind of, we've been in that other that you moved us to earlier this year too, so I don't, will that be
Well,
affected?
well, the other thing, if we need to,
Yeah,
you know, we reserved 50 spaces for the parent pickup that are coned off, because we have 50 people signed up for each window. But we've never counted more than, since the first week of school, when everybody drives more, we haven't counted more than maybe the first 2 weeks. The most has been like 28 cars at a time, or 30. So we can move those cones, you know, to free up another 20 spots that way and still be okay. And so that's another place where we can adjust if we need to.
Okay.
And further backup, we had some backup plans for emergency that involved some staff members parking in the back of the teardrop, and just the very back, taking off limits.
That would be a bad idea for recess.
Well, it would be just the very back, and about 15 spots all before the Gaga pit.
That'd be a bad idea.
Okay, well, we can talk more about that. I don't anticipate having to do it, but we vetted that out quite a bit, for what we needed, and we even did some vetting of if we got really desperate, things I don't think we're gonna ever need to get to, so I won't tell you more bad ideas.
That's why I say alley panic.
But we
We
have-
already have to play in a parking lot for recess, let's not add cars to the parking lot.
I'm more worried about the cars.
Yeah.
The children, the balls fly.
Yeah, but there's some other less than ideal things we did that we could make work if we had to for a short period of time, so. But I don't even think we're gonna need to, so let's not even talk about it.
Okay.
Once we get there. Cool.
Alrighty. That move us on to financial reports. Maddie, are you able to do that?
Yep. Okay, so the finance committee met yesterday. We talked about the February financials. Everything has been tracking. There weren't any concerns. We have 56 days of cash on hand, which is above the required 45. It is down from previous months, which is something that I asked about. And Jonas and Dustin informed me and the rest of the committee that it is because our lease aid has not been granted yet, but it is in the process. It was submitted and was.
Well, we've actually received it
Yep.
in March.
But it wasn't on the February.
It wasn't
Yes.
done before the end of
Yes.
February, so we have it now.
So now we have it, yes.
Yeah.
And then we discussed a few line items that were adjusted, mostly in the area of contracted services, which just comes with acquiring another building. They're gonna be updated and back on track for March financials. And then we discussed the preliminary budget for next year, which Jonas is gonna talk more about in a minute, so we'll be really brief. We did a training on what goes into creating a school budget, and we went through the budget assumptions document that Jonas shared. And he informed us how him and Dustin came to all of the information and numbers that they were able to get. And then the finance committee recommends that the board go forward and approve that preliminary budget then. Pretty quick.
I'll make a motion to approve the February financial and supplemental report, as well as the finance committee report. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Joe, governance?
So for governance, we actually met right before this meeting, with spring break and everything. So we started on the new schedule with that spreadsheet that was shared, I think, at one of the last board meetings to kind of get our hands on what we should be looking at and the schedule and order of things. I grabbed the first three in this case because two were small, and it turned out we actually already looked at a few of these. So for policy 525, we had actually already reviewed. So we just really need to clean it up, correct some of the dates, and get it over to Cassidy, get onto the website. Policy 531, we had also already reviewed back in November, and no changes to that one. So same thing, just clean that up over to Cassidy. And then we changed policy, so we're gonna change policy 104 to 103 and change 103 to 102, and the reason behind that is Allison was actually looking, it will better match up with other schools in the area, other charter schools, so that way if, hey, let's look at policy 103, go look at other schools, it'll be apples to apples comparisons. So that's part of why we made that, and then we actually ramped up what was formerly policy 104, which is in the first reading that got sent over here for, which will now be 103. It's a mouthful, a lot of numbers changing around, but
Was the whole thing changed then? Don't see red, okay.
we did, yeah. It was a more robust example we went with, and we all liked it a lot better. The other one was really skinny with what was in there. It had to do with complaints, what that process should be, and this one was a lot more thorough and detailed about how that should flow, and obviously updating some of the language like we always do from executive director to school leader and all those types of things, but it better aligned with what was actually going on with how a complaint is handled and how staff takes care of that, so. That was it. Any other questions or discussion around that?
I'm not sure that the policy review calendar had been made available in the last meeting. I think that was something that you had messaged about, that it would be in this one, so it is on
Oh,
our.
okay.
But it is, but it doesn't have, it has all the different policies and when they've been reviewed. But what's in there doesn't actually have the calendar, so I'm trying to remember what it's called, because I'm not finding it. in
I
the
think you have to
policy
just
review.
keep scrolling down is the way it works instead of tabs. I don't know if it's because it's a Google.
Oh, yeah, mine's got 18 pages.
Yeah.
I thought I saw the whole calendar.
And I think you get to go back up a little bit, might be right there. At least for, it's not the whole, go back down, Cassidy, right there. That's the one I think with,
But
what
there-
hasn't been reviewed in a long
But
time.
if you go, that lays out what hasn't been, it gives you the information. But if you go, I just opened this, where did it go? If you scroll back up, sorry, I lost it again, keep
Yeah,
going.
Page 2?
Page 2 probably, yeah. That was, that's filled in, we have that filled in when each of things is,
Oh,
the
sure.
dates each is supposed to be reviewed.
Oh, okay.
And that isn't filled in
So
here,
this
so we
is
got,
an older
so we need to
draft.
get, we'll put an updated one on for next month, I can't, on the document, I can't remember what we called it right now.
And you just want that in the agenda read? Or-
Well, at least for one time so everybody can see it, since we don't really have what it says here. It's not a bad idea to, maybe we just,
It wouldn't be opposed
and everybody
to-
just knows what's coming up and what's not.
If
and-
any board member wanted to look at it then,
Yeah,
yeah.
oh,
Cool.
we gotta get the right one.
With that, I make a motion to approve the March Governance Committee report and submit policy 103 for the first reading.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further conversations? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I'm going to abstain because you guys just met before this meeting and I haven't read through that 103 yet, so I will get to that before the second reading.
But I think the 103, we're not, it's just first reading.
Yep, so she said she's gonna read it before the second reading,
Oh, okay, got it.
and then let us
So
know if
that-
she sees anything. Perfect, thank you.
All right, discussion items. Jonas, you want to go through the budget assumptions?
Mm-hmm. So let's pull those up here. So we will be asking you to approve the preliminary budget in action items, when we get there. And so we just want to go a little bit through how we went through making this. I had sent this document to board members a month ago. Some of the numbers updated just a little bit. And then when we actually put pen to paper with the budget, then a few things tweaked a little bit from the initial assumptions, but not much. One thing we did tweak from the first version, I think the first version was like 1,230 students, and this one we're using 1,240. And that's just because our enrollment's ahead of pace, from what we expected, so we conservatively tweaked it a little bit. And also there was, didn't tweak it in the initial assumptions, but when Dustin went in to work with it, the actual revenue for EL is going up quite a bit next year, so that, when we plugged in there, it's quite a bit more than this, which made the numbers a little bit better. But with the assumptions we used, we were anticipating a revenue not including special ed. And special ed's going up quite a bit, but we kind of typically take special ed out because we get reimbursed for most of it. So whenever we spend more, we get reimbursed more, so it doesn't really make much sense to include. So when you look at the bottom line, it'll look like it goes up about $600,000 more than this because of special ed. This is just the regular part. But so we'll go up a little over 1.8 million. And then we looked at with the salary increases, the number of positions we needed, so on and so forth, anticipated that, kind of played that out, that would be about $1.1 million more. With the initial staffing draft we put in, it came in about $900,000 more, so a little bit better than we anticipated there too. And then where I had some assumptions around staff benefits and other inflationary increases, Dustin had a more comprehensive formula he typically uses with schools in doing this, which actually made the benefits go up a little bit more than I was anticipating. And the inflationary increases being a little bit more than I was anticipating. So he does 3% on every line, right? So we just automatically increase every line by 3%. And then, but then in addition to that, some other lines are impacted by increased enrollment, where you know you're gonna need beyond the 3% with, 150 more students, we know we're gonna need more supplies and the things that would be impacted by more enrollment significantly, and additional kind of formula to add to that he uses. And so, anyway, when we put everything together, on the assumptions, we were thinking we'd be, the increases would be about 1.8 million and increased expenses 1.7, we'd be about $100,000 better than this year. All was said and done, that's about where we ended up. I think this year right now we're projecting being about 150, 170 in the positive, and the preliminary budget when we look at it's in the mid two somewhere. So preliminary things seem to play out pretty well when we put it all together. We did some pretty conservative pieces in there. We know our federal funds are going to go up significantly with our increased enrollment. They usually go up like compensatory did, but we didn't factor that in at all, to just use that as a conservative piece to build a little cushion in there. And we don't really know exactly how much, because that formula changes every year depending on how many other students there are, and free and reduced lunch in other schools. And we tried to budget some other lines pretty conservatively, with the idea that we really need to be in a comfortable place budget-wise next year because of the kind of four pieces that hit all at once the following year, where if we're gonna go to separate start times, that's an extra $500,000 of busing costs. We still have one more year of the planned level of teacher salary increases, which, if we were doing the typical 2 to 3%, would be about $150,000 less than, $150,000 more than would be typical, or maybe a little more raises. And then there's a ramp-up period with our 40-year payback of our bonds here. Those first 2 years, you have some capitalized interest to bring down cost. So we might not quite get to where we maximize lease aid the following year. And then at the same time, we're hitting the year where we start to decrease how much we're enrolling each year based on space left, how much we have to get. So a lot of things are gonna hit at once the following year. And we wanna make sure we're not adding anything that we just have to cut the next year. We want the things that if the cushion plays out the way we think, a little bit of cushion for next year, we're spending on things that will reduce our costs the following couple of years. On textbooks that we would have to buy, or technology. And so when we set the technology budget line and the curriculum budget line, we set them with a higher increase this year. That Mr. Broderick manages the technology line and works with that. Megan Nave does the curriculum line. I said, you need to be looking at purchasing for the following year, figuring that budget line might get cut in half the following year. And so we need to be trying to get a year and a half worth of stuff this year, to get into the next year to be prepared for us being okay the following year. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And so.
You said here, like an increase in staffing, or is there a specific, are there specific staff members that you plan on hiring? For instance, our school counselor is doing a job of 3 people. So with increasing our staff, I would love to see another counselor. And it almost feels necessary, especially with high school, needing a counselor to direct their college placement.
So this is something that I actually kind of prepared a document, kind of the administrative structure and plan for the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And Cassidy, one of the things I was waiting for you to get through this little really busy period for you with enrollment, and I was gonna designate you as to try and set up an individual meeting with each board member in the next month. I'd like to go through what that whole plan is and how we're addressing some of the things that you guys have brought up and share with me about some of your hopes for what it will look like. And so I'd like to try and do that, and then we can maybe share a little more publicly after I get a chance to talk with each of you. Does that make sense? And so we'll do that before next month's board meeting. I'd like to meet each of you. We'll kind of go through and talk about how we're going to address those pieces. But it does involve ramping up in terms of all the salaries and all the additional classroom positions. And there's a few other places we're adding some support that I'll explain, and then we'll share next month after what the staffing plan part looks like. So, but there is room in there. There's room in there. So that makes sense. We good? And that how we got there? So that's how we got there. That's the whole plan. Feel really good about where we're at for next year. Want to be careful about adding something and then being like, oh, we got to cut it back the following year, which is where you just want to be a little careful, because it doesn't work like it would work with our own personal bank accounts or in any other business where let's just put more money away in the bank this year and save it for the following year, because once it goes at the end of the year, it goes into our fund balance.
You can't get it out.
We can't be in the negative for any year. We have to be in the positive,
Yeah.
the revenues and expenses for each year, which is why it makes more sense to buy things that will reduce the costs for the following couple of years.
Right.
And be just a little bit in the positive next year.
Right.
And so we're just trying to be really strategic about that.
Yeah. So this preliminary, I guess I would want to, I want to make sure that I'm clear about what I'm voting on. This looks, the preliminary the assumptions for the preliminary budget, that looks good to me.
Mhm.
I guess I'm just, when
You
it comes
want to see the staffing plan before you approve the budget.
Correct.
So what I will say is, let me just think about this a second. They're kind of two separate things.
Yeah.
You're approving an amount that we can spend. It's a separate thing, exactly where we spend it within those categories. And, so what am I trying to say?
That the staffing plan can still change, and you're just
Right.
allocating the dollars differently.
Right. That's what I'm saying. We're allocating enough dollars where if a counselor we determined was the highest priority, we could still do that. Right? But I want a board member to say, here's where it would come out if we do that, as opposed to this, and here's how we're trying to do some of the same things in the short term, and here's when we think a counselor would come in. But the board could certainly, like I said, we want to discuss the staffing plan and, approve the staffing plan in a future meeting if that was what the board wanted to do. But they're separate pieces. It's more about how much money do we have to spend on staffing is what we're approving. Make sense? So
I guess my concern would be, do we have enough money allocated for staffing? Are we approving this budget so that there is flexibility to take something from something and put it towards staffing if we feel like there needs to be more of a priority on staffing versus extracurriculum or something to that effect? Is there wiggle room?
First of all, it's a preliminary budget.
Sure,
So we
sure.
could change it anytime. What it does is all it really does is set the boundary for me is, Jonas, you can't go significantly over, not with an individual budget line, but within a kind of category, without coming back to the board and saying, hey, we're gonna need to go over this area and here's why.
Okay.
Right? And so that's, I think, really the limitation, but it also, it's more of the opposite piece, to make sure I'm not going out, I'm limited where I'm not doing what's approved by the board if I go out and hire 5 more teachers than what we can afford with this. then I'm not really, then you gotta hold me responsible for my job, and I gotta stay with my budget better, you know. But that, my evaluation wouldn't hold me accountable, right? But that's really more the piece, and so it's more the opposite direction to hold in place. We can continue to work together through where the individual lines go within it. Does that make sense?
Because I looked at this and I looked at the other budget piece and I was like, this is pretty clear cut, that makes sense, but the other budget piece, I was like, everything's clumped into, I can't tell what is separated and what, you know, like, there
So,
was just,
Do you wanna pull up?
I don't need to spend like a ton more time, I just
Do-
wanna make sure that whatever I'm voting on, like,
Yeah,
there's still gonna be.
But we only have a couple items, so I think we're okay if you pull up the preliminary budget, is that in here, right? That we're gonna,
8.1?
Yeah.
do we want to, so we can go into what's in that
Okay.
item?
I think page 5 has new staff calculations.
It does, and it says, I think, 7.
It says what?
7. Extra.
Well, okay, so that's really kind of an estimate. The biggest piece is this. The biggest piece that you'll look at is this year salaries for regular was 5 million. Right now, this goes up to just under 6 million. Right? So all this really says is I need to make sure when I'm doing our staffing plans, we're not going over 6 million. Right? Or not significantly over, you know, and that the whole line is, and then, you know, the benefits is going up this much. So that's what you're kind of seeing that in terms of how much is going up. I can say that 300,000 of that is the raises. Right, about 300,000, so the other 600 is new positions, added FTEs, added positions to address. You know, and with more sections, you have one more kindergarten section, one more 7th grade section, 3 more 8th grade sections, and 1 11th section. So we have about 6 additional sections there. So that's 6 teachers, and then there's a couple extra specialists that go with that. And then there's some other pieces around behavior and support that are in there too, that I wanna kind of go through with everyone. Yes. And I can also, one thing that would be reasonable too is, I think, to have in April, after I kind of go through with each and see if we tweak it as long as it stays within that, then we can share publicly and talk in group transparently about what exactly we're adding for positions next year. I just want to have some more conversations before we do that publicly with each of you, to make sure that we're on the same page.
Cassidy? Enrollment process update?
So I kind of just did an overview. I'm gonna start kind of talking about the policies, kind of really follow that when we were talking about, or when I'm going through enrollment. And so kind of a few of our conditions, and I know some of you are in governance, so you know this pretty well, but so we're K-12 only, and then we really are strict on the students must be 5 by September 1st to start kindergarten, and they must be 6 by September 1st to start 1st grade, or they've completed kindergarten. And so those are 2 things that we always get people trying to be like, you know, my kid was born September 3rd or September 2nd, and I know that's really hard, but our school and our kindergarten teachers really firmly believe that we need to stick strong to that September 1st date. The tricky part sometimes that we see is that other schools may let their students start kindergarten prior to being that age, and so then they come in here for 1st grade when they technically should be in kindergarten. And so I know that sometimes has happened with our 1st graders, but because they've completed kindergarten somewhere else, they have to kind of go to 1st grade. And then current students don't have to reply each year. They're kind of already enrolled for next year unless they tell us otherwise, or we get like a records request. And those kind of start coming anytime from now till the next school year. And then vacancies, so like whenever there's an open spot, a student withdrawal, it's always offered to the first student on the wait list. And we kind of do the lottery system with that, I think I'll get to. If a student doesn't accept the position when they're off the wait list within 5 days, they forfeit their spot and we move on to the next spot on the wait list. And so we currently have wait lists. All year we've had wait lists for 2nd and 7th grade this year. And then, which is kind of ironic because then next year it's first and third grade we have waitlists for, but, and then there's, a 15-day rule. I know our teachers kind of hear this often, but per Minnesota statute, if a student has missed 15 consecutive school days in a row, we withdraw them. So sometimes this happens to our families that take a long vacation overseas, or there's other reasons for this, but we have to legally withdraw them because we can't claim them for that amount of absences. And so if they don't start at another school, like we do re-enroll them then back here, but that just kind of sometimes affects our ADM if we have kids that are doing extended leaves during that period of time.
But so it's a reason that if we do that, and we have to withdraw them for 15 days, if we enroll another student to take that place, and the student comes back to the country, and they haven't attended another school in Minnesota, we have to take them back, even if it means we're over our class size limits.
And so typically with those, we have like an extended leave of absence form that we ask those families to kind of complete, so then that way we're informed of those, because then we let them know like your spot is held. But during that 15-day period, teachers don't technically have to provide work, they don't have to grade things. Our teachers are amazing, we'll sometimes be like, okay, we're doing workbook pages here to here, but they don't technically have to do that. And because they get unenrolled, they kind of get dropped from like their online programs like iReady or the other online things. And then there's preference, so when we are doing our lottery, so December 1st is when we start our open enrollment, and it ends at the end of January. And so when we are processing those, I'll kind of get to, we have an order of preference. So the first is sibling preferences. And so if there's a sibling that's currently enrolled at WLA, then the sibling automatically would be one of the first ones in. And then staff preference, meaning like a staff student. So if the staff wants their students to come here, then they would also be one of the next people on the list. Minnesota residents, we don't typically have anyone apply for Wisconsin. Sometimes they ask, but we don't technically have to let them come in because we don't get money for Wisconsin residents, so we'd have to kind of make a, we've never really done that. But, and then we go to the general wait list, or the general rest of the students that are on the list. And then other kind of just random things in the policy that are nice to mention is students on a current year wait list, they don't carry over to the next year's lottery, they have to just re-enroll for the next year. And so I usually will send like a reminder to them if they're on the wait list for this year, hey, if you're still interested, make sure you are applying for next year. And then we can't limit admission to students due to their intellectual ability measures, aptitude, athletic ability, or if we, like we don't get records prior to accepting students. So we can't kind of say no to students based off of any of the records or things like that. And we typically can't request records until after they've officially enrolled. And then no payments or bribes, of course, can't do that. And then admission is free. And so kind of my initial process is, I had mentioned open enrollment starts December 1st till the end of January. And so during that time period, we're doing a lot of marketing. We have our enrollment showcase, which is early December, that we invite new families to kind of come to our school. We have teachers stay after, give information about our school, our curriculum, give tours. And then this is, usually it starts in November, and it's still going right now, where I'm doing tours, and more tours. I had two tours today. Some weeks I get up to 10 to 12 tours in a week, and so it gets to be a lot of tours. But those are really fun. I used to do group tours, but I didn't like how it's not as personalized. I like to do more one-on-one, because I feel like I can cater the needs of those students and those families a lot more. So it's more work on my end, but I feel like it's more beneficial for the families too. And then after January 31st, that first week of February, usually the day after, depending on the weekends, Jonas and I will meet. We'll kind of look at our data, look at our current students, look to see what spots we have open for the fall. And so we'll kind of organize that and see, okay, how many spots do we have available in each grade. And then I prepare personal emails, so each family gets a individualized email from me, letting them know if they got in, and then if they got waitlisted, which we did have to do for first and third grade. First grade I think is up to 24, maybe more. I'll get to that. And then February 4th, 6-ish is when those emails get sent out, and then they can register. This year was I've been pushing this since I've been in this role. It's my 4th year. We do online registration officially this year, so instead of the paper packets or typing into forms or handwriting, they get to log in to Parent View and they fill out all the information online. So this is going to make my summer a lot easier, and there's going to be a lot less typos, and so that was very exciting. So thank you, Mr. Vivian, for that. And then kind of some more things about the enrollment process and what we're going to be doing basically since February until June 1st. Messed up the bullet points here, but basically until the start of the school year.
Before you dig into this,
Yeah.
I wanna give a little caveat or
Yeah.
context. This is what I'm meeting with each of the grades PLCs about next week. I've already met with,
Which you might have to change because we have the Apex Fund.
yeah, I think we're changing to Wednesday.
Yep.
But I already met with 5th grade team, met with a couple people on the 6th grade team, met with a handful of teachers already, but not, the minority of them, about the concept. And basically, what this is all about is addressing the challenge of adding so many new students during the school year. And so, this year it appears we're gonna have about 90 students, is what we're tracking to, from second week of school till the end of the school year, withdraw and be replaced, and have to have about 90 new students, which comes out to about over 1.5 to almost 2 on average per class, right? And of course, some classes, nobody's left. In other classes, 4 people have left. It's not a perfect science, right? And have to be replaced. But we all, there's a common agreement that I've never heard anybody disagree with, teachers, me, or anybody, that high priority is maintaining our class size, low class sizes, and which are 20 at kindergarten, 22 at first, second, third grade right now, and 24 for the grades above that, which is great. But based on the conversation I've had with teachers, based on my experience as a teacher, my beliefs, we should be striving to have our goal be to not have to take as many new students during the year, to have that be our average class sizes from beginning of the year to the end, so that we might have more classes start with 25 or 26, where then the year at 22 and an average is 24 for the year is kind of the target that we try and reach. And the comments that some teachers have made in these conversations we have, I'd rather start with 1 or 2 more than have to add so many during the year. And of course, when you do that, some classes aren't going to ever fall below the 24. There's some that will, be over, and there'll be some that will end the year at 22. But with the idea that we want to kind of hit that average and try and get to a place where we're closing enrollment, by the end of September, with being the target and the goal. And so this is about how we're talking about tweaking it a little bit to try and do that and reach that goal. That isn't a perfect science, but we have a lot of data. We know exactly over the last 4 years, the percentage of students each year that has returned from first grade to second grade and second grade to third grade. We know what the averages are. And they're not exactly the same every year. Some years it's 86%, and some years it's 92%, so you're never gonna be able to hit it exactly right? And we also know that historically, right now we have 343 new students that are enrolled for next year. We know based on the historical data that it's been pretty consistent that about 25% of those will not be here the first day of school, right? So when we're making projections and figuring things out, we can, but you're gonna end up with, however you do it, you're not gonna get it exactly the same for every class, every grade, unless you do what we're doing now, which is to hit your targets. You only enroll the 24 students, and when you get to 23, you have the 24th, and you keep doing that for the entire school year, right? And you have 90 new students that start during the course of the school year. And so the goal is not to raise class sizes, I want that to be clear, but in order to hit that target, you may be a little bit more over at the beginning than in some classes, then you'll be a little bit more under on average at the end, so that averages out right to the number. So that's the goal we're trying to accomplish. Now you can share.
We typically will meet, sometimes it's daily, sometimes weekly, just kind of looking at those numbers constantly. We both have this spreadsheet that we're always looking at, and so we make adjustments as needed to. And so we're just thinking, at first until June, kind of over enrolling each class by 3 students, because kind of giving up for that 25% of kids that are going to enroll and then change their mind, or they go elsewhere, or don't show up, and then kind of monitoring that.
By comparison, last year, we did 2 students over.
Yep, yeah.
Right, and we ended up, when school started, 40 of our 50 classes roughly were at our number or under, right? There were 10 that were 1 over.
Like, I think Miss Pitt, you've been over the
All
whole year
year.
and have never lost, which
Never lost.
that happens, but then you have someone like,
Had the
there's a
under
4th
all
grade teacher who's started full, and then now she's like at 19 or 20, and
Oh,
so,
yeah.
yeah, so then it's, you have
I've
those.
been like 1 under all year.
Right, and so there's,
Losing
it's so
people.
random.
But I've had other years I've been full or over all year, it's, yeah. it's
So
always like that.
there's not a perfect science like Mr. Beaton was saying, but then we were saying in June and July, kind of looking at that and adjusting it, so it's only 2 over, which is our usual. And then as we get to August, right before school starts, trying to keep it just at that 1 over, so then if you do lose that 1 student, then at the start of the school year, kind of making up for those 90 that we lose in
Right,
September.
but like last year, we didn't go, we kept enrolling to 2 over all the way. I mean, only did 2 over into like July,
Mhm.
right? So pushing that back a month. So just pushing everything a little bit more so that we're having probably a little bit higher percentage of our classes 1 over. Hopefully not getting anybody to 2, but it's not impossible that could happen if typical amount don't drop over some that normally do.
And I imagine offering them a spot sooner is more likely to retain them for the first day of school too.
Absolutely.
They've already planned something
The
else.
more you do, right, because then
You haven't
kids
gotten
go.
invested anywhere else.
Right, and that's what happens. And I'm not so worried, I mean, I think even if we did it the same way we did it last year, we would still fill up classes. I just think we would have to do a lot more enrolling through the school year to get to the same numbers. But we also, you may have some teachers being like, or parents even like, I thought our target was 24, there's 26 in this class in the first week of school, right? And we need, if we're gonna do this, we're not gonna get it where it's gonna be only 1 over in every single, like, there's gonna be a few places where the historical trends don't hold, right? And so we have to have everybody on board with that and understanding if we're gonna do this, I need the board to agree that we wanna do this. And I first wanna make sure that to the extent the teachers are on board, so I can inform you of that, you know, do you have the information from all the different meetings, not just the 6 teachers I've talked about it with so far.
Right.
But that's gonna be a little bit of re-educating and, you know, and reminding in August, even when teachers get a class list and they have 26 on it, and they've never had that before, hey, this is a reminder, we're doing this. In all likelihood, you're probably not gonna have to take a new student the whole year this year, where in the past you have. And in all likelihood, if the average holds, you'll, you know, at some point this year, get down to the 24 you normally are, unless you're Allison and you just keep everybody.
You're just that amazing.
You're just too good.
No one wants to leave.
Yeah. But that's, it just, it's not a change in the number of students we're trying to get or how we're trying to average. It's not, doesn't change, in fact, doing it either way doesn't affect the budget or the finances, in my mind. It impacts just,
Culture, yeah.
impact in the way that,
I imagine when you set up classes, you even out those new enrollments.
Yeah.
well, yes and no. Yes, you're gonna give, of course, anybody new coming in is gonna go to the class that has the least, right? But it's, and up until we send the teacher list out, we do that. But it's pretty hard to.
I mean, new to the school, you're gonna spread them out between the teachers.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, typically it's pretty even, ends up
Yeah.
being even, yeah.
Yeah, but there is another discussion we're also having at that same meeting, about how I'll come back to the board about the teachers are
Okay.
on board about. Probably don't get in the weeds until we have a discussion with teachers. So,
And then, kind of, this is just my new family communication plan of what I do each year, so, with the new families that are already enrolled and registered, February they were notified of acceptance or wait list. March, I sent out the school calendar once that was approved, and kind of sent that out. April, I do like this newsletter that showcases some events throughout the school year that they can look forward to next year. May, I do like a reminder about bus and drive line, because those are due soon. June, I do like a little summer one and give them some important dates. July is usually the school supply list, and then August is about open house and back to school, and then September is on you guys. But just kind of, I started this last year of having more of a set communication, just kind of help keep those families kind of in the loop, and it also sometimes helps weed out the ones that aren't coming back but never decided to tell me. And then Mr. Dexter wanted me to add this too as well, because I feel like I learned so much about families when they come to tour and why they're leaving and what they're not liking about where they're at, especially for the grades that are coming from any other grades that aren't kindergarten. And so a lot of the big ones, especially in the upper elementary and middle school, is the small class sizes. I think our lower elementary mimics for the most part, but when you get to 4th grade and up, I've been hearing in the public schools that they're close to 30, if not 34. So that always blows my mind, and so they really like that. Core knowledge, or maybe not specifically core knowledge, but they want more of a rigorous curriculum for their students, something that's more individualized as well, where they can differentiate. They always like when I talk about our intervention and how that's set up at our school. They like the more support, where I've mentioned that we have the behavior paras, kind of one per floor, the school counselor, and they always really like the present and available administration. It's kind of nice. I really like it. Most of my tours, we always end up running into Mr. Exton usually, or today we ran into Mr. Bugan. They always see them out and about, which I think is really, because I talk about that in my tours, so whenever that happens, it's nice to see too. A lot of teachers or a lot of families are unhappy with the communication they're getting from their teachers at their school. And so I come here and I said, well, number one, they're required every Thursday to do a weekly newsletter, so they love that. But then they love the Parent Square app when I talk about that. And I always tell them I'm biased because I love our teachers because I've worked with them so many years, but we do have some of the best teachers. And then they love the family involvement. Sounds like we do a lot of events compared to some schools. Or they come because they heard from their friends that it's highly recommended. And then students leaving this year, they usually let me know, and it's been a lot. I feel like this year more than most people are moving. So that's kind of the biggest one. And then something else that I do to just check in with our new families is I, either when I see them outside or around the building or in the morning, I ask them to check in, like, how's the transition going, or I'll send an email. And for the most part, I should do a data, but I feel like it's up in the 90% that a lot of people are really, really happy when they come here. So it's always fun for me to see, because I've invested a lot of time in them, and that they're happy. So I like that. And then lastly, some numbers. So this is a snippet of a spreadsheet Jonas and I update daily. But so you can kind of see this yellow column are all our new families. So right now, 342 new students for next year, which is really exciting to see. As you can see, we're on 24 students for 1st grade wait list, 8 for 3rd grade. We're about to start a wait list for kindergarten and 2nd grade as well. And then these are current, well, this is earlier March numbers. And then this is anticipated returning based off percentages that we've used over the last 4 years. These are confirmed that we know are coming back, and so that one is going to be kind of continuously getting updated through the next few months as I get records requests. So I think, if I remember correctly, this column is this plus this, and so this number is really high because it's not taking into account of the students that aren't coming back. And
That's assuming that,
That's
that column
assuming every
assumes
single
that
person.
every student returns and every student that's enrolled
Right.
actually shows up for, where we know that 25% typically don't to the new ones. We know that typically most grades, about 10%, 12% don't, and so so if you look at the kindergarten, where, okay, our goal is to have 160, we said that we're gonna enroll 3 over per class, so we would start waiting list at kindergarten when we get to 184, right? But that sounds like, oh my gosh, that's 24 over, right, 3 per class, but using the 25% that we have historically not come to do, that's only 130 some. We know that we're probably gonna still be, to get to the 160, we're probably gonna still have 20 some more that aren't even enrolled yet to get there, right, with historical averages. So it's not as far over as it sounds.
So I think if you take like this is the anticipated, once these numbers are adjusted, plus this number, but then when you take off even 25% of that, it gives us closer to that 1270, if not, I think a little bit lower than that. But you can kind of see how many open offers we have, and then what I always like to look through too is like the last 3 columns of accepted, they initially accept and then they eventually change their mind or decline or no responses, so that's kind of fun to keep an eye on. And then open offers, you can see at 22 open offers, that means they have a spot if they register, but have not yet, or a due date is coming. Any?
And where it's red means we're not making any more offers,
Yeah, so,
right?
Yep.
We're not making any more offers until more kids withdraw.
yeah, so kindergarten, because I have 8 open offers, we're waiting till their due date is up, and then I might have to make more offers as well. But yeah, any questions, anything enrollment wise? Kind of nice to give you a little more behind the scenes of what I do.
150 scares the Jesus out of me.
Yeah.
But remember, we really think that 13 of the ones that are coming on average will not come, right? So now you're down to 137. Of the 16 that are enrolled, or new enrolled, only 12 on average will come.
Well, and that also includes this number, which is every single third grader. We just lost a third grader today, so then, you know, things like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem. Therein lies the challenge in this whole thing, right? Like if something is way off from historical averages, we're gonna get a problem. But if we don't do this, you're gonna maintain the thing where you have to keep adding students whose teachers continue to report is the most challenging thing for them.
And I don't know
Right.
what teachers or parents feel, but like depending, like, you know, on the first, once open house happens and you hear back from families, like let's say your class is still over full, you've heard from everyone, but one class is under 3, I don't know if that's something we would talk
Well,
about of rearranging a little bit.
So
or
my
parents
position
like that.
last year about this, and I don't think it's changed, but I'm open
Okay.
for discussion, this is also a discussion with teachers. It's pretty hard to go to a family after they've got their teacher in class of family and say, we need you to move
Yeah.
because the classes aren't balanced, right? But what we can do is go really reaching out, hunting, looking for students that would want to. And maybe have a friend in another class that would balance it out. So I think we would work hard to try and find some family that feels good about doing it, but we wouldn't force a family to do it just to balance them out. It makes sense, and so that would be the thinking around it. And you just, I don't think you can have a family, this is your teacher, you get excited to meet the teacher night, or maybe it's not even the teacher night, but they got friends in the class and get all mindset.
Already did
Oh,
all
we're
your-
just kidding, you actually have this teacher. I think that's not good business.
Yeah.
That's not fair to kids or families.
Right.
So, but we would do what we can short of that to try and balance them out.
Throw it up as an option.
Yeah, or, and if we're not having luck, we could even, if we were that, you could even send an email to the 3 classes that are over and say, if there's anybody willing to switch, you know, that would like to move to one of these classes, let us know, help us balance it out and see if we get any takers that way.
I mean, you can even do visits.
Yeah.
If you think that low classroom would be a
Yeah.
good fit for student in high classroom,
Yep.
just go visit and see what you
Yeah.
think for.
And that would be the thing that would help, is that whatever family is moving would be going from a class that's bigger to one that, you know, the class that would be going down because they're doing it, so. But I just don't think we can say we're requiring you to do this,
No.
so.
But I think you'd be able to, most of the time, I feel like you'd be able to find somebody, especially that early.
Yeah. Yeah, but where it could get tougher is, let's say, in 4th grade next year, everybody's at 26 to start. Or maybe 3 are 26 and 3 are 25, right? Well, now, the classes that were about even, over that first month, the class loses 3 and gets down to 22 or 21, and there's still one at 26.
Yeah.
Now they've been in there for 3 weeks.
Right.
And it's just, the kids that happen to withdraw are the same class. We can't, you know, we can't control that, and that has to be, everybody has to understand that it's not gonna be perfectly balanced all the time. You know, and there's just no way to do that other than do what we do now and have a bunch of new students. And so that's the balance that we talk about.
That's always a really hard part of the process. I feel bad about it sometimes, and that happens.
I like, I'll bring it up in our like teacher PLC too, but I'm like I even told you at the finance meeting, I was like, I completely agree with that model. The only problem that I really see is that I don't know if you've had this too, it gets really hard to find desks, and desks in
Yeah.
decent condition, and
Yeah.
chairs in decent condition,
And
and
the
like.
classroom sizes.
And ours are big, so I'm not gonna complain
Right.
about that, we can
It's-
fit, and we'll be
It-
fine.
It's a.
Some of them
it's
it
a-
gets really tough.
It's on
Not.
first and second floor in building A that the rooms are smaller.
Yes,
and-
it's
and-
room size, but then as you get up, it's the materials, it's the
But-
mailboxes,
but-
it's all that
but
stuff.
we won't ever have a situation where we don't have a desk per student in a room. I mean, we may have to wait a week to get one that matches because we have to pull from somewhere else, but, you know, or pull something, but if you have 25 kids, we're not gonna have a kid sitting on the floor. I mean, we will make that happen. It will get a little bit easier in that regard too, from the standpoint that for the classrooms over here, the new classrooms, you have all the furniture coming. So you're gonna be, once we get to December, we're gonna be over in furniture. You know, in that building, we're gonna have, not bringing the furniture with them, the kids are like 120 kids, so that will help.
That'd be great, yeah.
I mean, granted, the furniture for seventh grade doesn't help kindergarten furniture, I mean, but it probably,
Tables, maybe they just need a chair, right?
yeah, but we'll get there. But I think it's more than getting the tables, it's the tables fit, more students, the tables fit in them. And those students, those rooms are not designed for, and again, that's why we don't want, I mean, that's one of the reasons we don't want them, this isn't about, we want classes that just to be bigger, right? We want them to be the same as they've been on average through the year. But it does mean there will be some times when there would be a little bit more than there would to get there. So, but we'll have those conversations, and yeah, that's, I mean, it's the downside, right? That's why I thought this isn't just like, oh, we're just doing this, this is, you know, I know there's downsides, there's pluses, minuses, and there's situations where it's gonna end up being better, and situations where it's gonna be less perfect, and that's why really, if we don't have the consensus from the team, the teaching staff that we wanna do this, I'm not gonna force it, you know, down our throats, like, but I do think when we really think about it and look at it, in the end, for most of the teachers, most of the time, it's gonna create a better situation. And there will be some outliers where occasionally it's gonna be less ideal for some teachers, right? But I think the majority of the teachers, most of the time, it will end up being better and balanced. But it may not feel that way right at the beginning of the year when everybody wants to be excited, unless we can keep the right mindset, so.
Okay. So approving the preliminary budget, do we need to say anything more about that before?
Are these action items where we can't have a discussion because
You-
that needed to happen at the beginning?
You have a discussion after the motion in a second, then you have discussion, and then somebody votes to close discussion.
Okay, well, a motion to approve the preliminary fiscal year 27 budget.
Sorry.
Any discussion?
There was something I wanted to say before we voted on it, and I can't remember what it is now. There was something I wanted to add right after we ended the discussion, but I can't remember, so I guess not.
Questions? Okay. Can always be modified. All in favor?
Aye.
Any aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Open enrollment for trimester 3. Is that, well, reopening because we are now below 1110? We're at 1110?
We were exactly at 1,100 yesterday. Our budget's based on
1100.
Our budget's based on 1,100. We had fallen to 1097.
Mm.
We didn't have a board meeting, so we accepted some students, even though we voted to close. And what I would suggest is that that we vote to reopen enrollment through next Friday. Because just some of the classes that have fallen below, this is what we're trying to avoid having to do next year to be in our budget, but, I mean, it's okay if we're a student or two below, but we've lost 35 students a trimester so far, right? So you lose 35 students over the next trimester, now you're getting 10 students below on average by the end of the year if we don't fill a few spots. A few of them got already filled, but now you're talking $100,000. You know, now all of a sudden our budget gets
What
less
grade
severe.
levels are we looking to open?
Not second or third or seventh.
Well,
We have grades that are full,
well,
but.
third and fifth have a spot in April that will be filled, but then third just had an opening today, so technically.
No,
we
but
have-
they're still over in total.
In total, but not class.
There's a few classes in those grades that aren't. Yeah, but I think it'd be more,
So K1 are open.
K1 and 4 and 5, and 6.
And 6.
K1, 4, 5, 6.
I think that any classes that have MCAs, it makes it a little bit difficult now in trimester 3, that you would be accepting a student that we can't control how they do, but it's gonna be counted for or against us. So I would say.
Well, it doesn't count against us for the North Star report or for the growth. It's only students that are enrolled by December 15th. When you look at the school report card online, it gives you two different options, ways to look at it. All students and students enrolled December 15th. So it does kind of look like it, when you go on the report card, you go on the all students. It does look that way for that. But, and that's a fair point. And we're close now anyway. I think, second and third are pretty full, and I wouldn't really be adding names so much. Maybe K1, and 4, 5, if we wanted to say we would take some students in K1 still, and not 4, 5. I mean, we're probably gonna be okay meeting all our budget stuff, even if we did get to that 10 students and we end up at 1090, 10, 1100. But it starts to get a little tighter where we're misjudging anything, you know? And so.
How many are on our K1 wait list right now?
That's-
No one,
Gotcha.
but I have an offer out for first grade currently.
It would just be, in first grade is the one that's the most under, right? They're at 132 is their target, and they're down to like 126 or
Yeah,
125.
something like that.
So that's the grade where if we got any, I think we most.
Started with openings too, right?
What's that?
September for whatever.
Well, and also just the fact that you want to get your new students in the earlier grades as much as you can so that you can have them longer. And so at a minimum, I think we should, at least for the next couple of weeks, take anybody we get in kindergarten, first grade. And then I kind of feel the same way about sixth grade, where we keep losing because the kids, we want to get them earlier into middle school when you're kind of starting over in middle school and retain them as opposed to getting more new ones in 7th and 8th grade. And 6th grade is, I think they're down to 115 or 116 after what we lost today. And they should be at 120 if they were full, right? So I feel like maybe it's even, hey, we won't take any more that haven't been accepted other than K1, 2, and we go to close all enrollment again on April 3rd or whatever it is. We're not getting them at the beginning of the trimester. Makes sense? I mean, technically it's still closed. I'm just not following what you directed.
You emailed us.
I emailed you, told you it wasn't, right? Let me know any problem, but, because you need to start at the beginning of the trimester, and we didn't have another board meeting after it became clear we weren't gonna hit our enrollment target. So either I'm gonna not get there one way or the other. Either we're gonna be less than that we're projecting for enrollment, and not done what we said, or we're gonna take more students. So either way, it was, yeah. So if we say, hey, we're not enrolling any more students after a day, we're full enough with where we're at, and if we get tight with the budget, that's okay. I don't think we'll have a problem. It starts to get a little tighter with cushion, you know, from what we're projecting if we're misjudging anything.
We heard from Allison, what are you thinking?
So are you proposing you said through next Friday?
Yeah.
Kind of think, how many more kiddos do you think you could get by then, I guess?
If you're looking at an average, 2 or 3, I mean, it's not gonna be that many, right? But it's just, like, so it's not gonna make that huge a difference anyway. And that's why I'm not that concerned if you say we just need to close it. Just keep it closed and not even.
I completely agree with what you're saying. The thing that I'm thinking of, you always think about your own grade level a little bit, and my grade level, the teacher who I know would go to would be okay. They're low, but they're okay. So it's not,
Mhm.
like, it would be fine for us.
Isn't this is somewhat unrelated, isn't this a weird time of year
Yes.
to lose such a high amount of kids?
I guess I was.
I'm
Well,
stuck on that.
3 of
Yeah.
them the 2 that have been turned in for 2 months, they're moving, and their siblings are starting next year because those grades have wait lists, and they wanted to be able to start them this year so they can already be here for next year. And then the other one got in for 2nd grade for next year, but they're wanting to just get in for 1st grade now so they can kind of already be acclimated for the fall.
But you're saying more about
No,
students
losing
leaving.
kids.
And
Oh, leaving,
what
sorry.
I will say about that, I mean, what I would say is somewhat anecdotal, although I think we've got quite a bit of information for my impression from when we try and follow up as students are leaving and know why when we can.
Yeah.
And it has been significantly more leaving because they're physically relocating and moving. And I don't know if that is something to do with current state of housing, if it has to do with, you know, well, why that's different than it's been in the past in terms of whatever's going on. And whether it's economy, it's laws, it's just a weird anomaly this
Are
year.
they sharing a move in state, or are they just moving?
There's
Both.
been a good chunk moving south,
Mhm.
ironically, but yeah.
And I don't
So
know if
Wisconsin.
there's something with ice surges that some people are leaving because ice surges themselves, or I have no idea what the reasons are for sure. I don't think we've really dug in where that is. But in terms of how it compares,
Yeah.
relative to the percentage of students leaving, because we have more students now, so you have more leave, you get more, right? Relative to the percentage leaving, it's very similar to what it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
Last year, it was much less. Last year, it was like a 33% drop in what left during the year. And then that 30, I don't know beyond beyond the last 3 years. That was as far back as we looked. But 2 years ago, last year, this year. This year's been very similar to what it was 2 years ago.
Okay.
But last year was much less than it was 2 years ago. So I don't know, and I don't know how it compares in terms of 2 years ago, if families are moving or there are other reasons they're leaving. I just know when we talk, it seems like there's been a lot that have been relocating this year.
And
A
it's
lot more than last
data
year.
on that, so we can kind of track that every year.
What's that?
I'm starting to do data on that, so we can kind of
Yeah.
start.
Yeah. So that's the best, but I don't know what exactly is causing it. There's just guesses or theories or ideas.
Do you know how many are on the wait list for 4, 5, and 6?
Right now, no.
No, so it'd just be if we get to enrollment in
Just
a couple
second and
weeks.
seventh.
It's, like I said, that's why if we just wanna cut it off and say, oh, it's so.
I mean, I understand the 1st grader wanting to get it.
Yeah.
If the team's okay with it.
I mean, the thing is, we kind of have to be consistent. So anybody who's applied to grade has an opening the last 2 weeks, we've taken, done the same for everybody.
Yeah.
You can't be picking and choosing your students.
No, but it sounds like that's the
Yeah.
only one who would be in an open.
No, but what I'm saying, if there's other new students in the next week or two, we can't,
Oh.
well, this teacher's okay with it, that's not, so we're gonna do it with this one and
Yeah.
not that one. We have to be, that could be discriminatory and.
No, I'm thinking, yeah, when I was even talking, I was thinking more like, just anecdotally, I'm like, yeah, it would probably be okay, it would be fine in the next week or so, yeah.
But again, this isn't,
But if there
this
aren't
isn't
any.
a hill to die on for
I
me.
doubt we're
like-
gonna get that many.
No, but if there aren't
applicants
any
now.
applicants anyway for 4, 5, 6, and with MCAs coming up, that would make it harder.
So scary, yes.
Then I think open it for K1 for the next week or two.
Yeah, can we just pick to open it for K1?
You can do by grade, as long as we do the same for anybody who applies for kindergarten or first
Yeah,
grades.
yeah.
As long as we're consistent with, and not,
With what we do.
yep.
Cause even still, I think opening it for sixth grade, and I see your point for why you would open it for sixth grade to boost your seventh grade numbers next year, it still will be affecting those sixth grade students and teachers in your middle of trimester to catch them up into what they've missed for the last 2 weeks.
And sixth grade has had the most new students of any grade throughout the year.
They really have,
So,
yeah.
so I actually think remembering that,
Yeah.
I'm fine with the K1 thing, like
Yeah,
that's.
I think let's just open it for K1, and no offense, K1 teachers, it probably is easier to accept
would
a
think,
little one
yeah.
wherever,
Yeah.
where it gets harder once you get.
Absolutely, because I miss so much more.
Mhm. And we only have one kindergarten opening anyways, right?
One now, yeah.
One, so we only have one kindergarten opening.
Yeah.
But if another student left in a week or two, then,
Is it- Do we want to just do 1 week, or do you want 2 weeks? Till the end of the month?
Oh,
or
I guess I
something?
was thinking the 2 weeks from tomorrow. I was thinking April 3rd or whatever that was. I just was thinking that was next week for some reason in my head, but, yeah.
You can push that, I mean, if it gets warmer weather, you can push, like, it can be April right now. It's warmer weather.
D- Does that 2 weeks from tomorrow make sense from you
Yeah.
guys have school experience, not me, so.
I agree. It's always hard. I like that we're talking about trying to make this better for next year, because it's always hard.
Yeah.
I guess that's, the other piece of it is, it does highlight what we're trying to, I'm hoping to
Exactly.
accomplish. Problem is, people don't remember that in August, and beginning of September, when you're starting the school year. You kind of forget about what it was like in spring when you had the kids.
Take a video of our PLC meeting with you.
Yeah.
Show the video.
Okay, so I will make a motion to open enrollment in only grades 1 in kindergarten and first until end of business day, Friday, April 3rd, for trimesters.
Second.
It's been
And to be clear about what that means is, student applies on April 3rd, we offer them on April 3rd. They still have 5 days to accept.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, so they could join your class on April 10th.
Sure.
Right. Okay, just making sure we're on the same page.
Thank you for the clarification. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the February 19th, 2026 board meeting minutes.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 9.1, I don't have any communication here. Item 10, housekeeping. Our next regular Board of Directors meeting will be on Thursday, April 16th, 2026 at 5:30 here in Building C. And then I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.